want to thank you for joining me today.
All right.
So I just wanted to
Thanks for
touch,
having me.
yes, and we just were talking about, um, the concept of relationships and making those around us, especially those that we care about, aware of certain behaviors that can be toxic, that are damaging to the relationship. And you said something that was very interesting. So, how many times do you feel it's that, you know, let me just back up. What do you think is the proper way to handle that sort of situation?
Begin with an I. They say, I feel like this. When you do this to me, this makes me feel, I feel this way or that way. And after, you state how you feel, you're relating it to the individual. If it continues, if it's constant, once you've informed them, and then you begin again and something else occurs, and so it happens again, and then you bring it to their attention again, and then they're listening to you, and then it's no changes, but you know how it made you feel. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know how it really made you feel, and so different, because I feel like everybody's in different places, spiritual. Some people are still on the milk. When they coming into Christ, they're still on the milk, meaning the word. Like, they're like an infant, so they're still still learning. So it's like they're still sucking. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Kind of like like a bottle. You know what I mean? And so it's a gradual thing with God. It's so many levels with Him. So it just takes some time. To grow. Like, I'm not expecting for an individual to you can run into anybody, but if they're not where I'm at, I still can speak to them. I still can have a dialogue or talk with them. But we just have to know that I'm saying all this to say we're all in different aspects and different stages in our walk in Christianity. And that's okay. And maybe with that person, we had to allow to leave because they were doing some things that made us feel uncomfortable. Who's to say in the next 10 or 15 years or however you guys will come back around once, they've matured, once, you've gone through some stuff, some maturing in yourself. You never know how it will all correlate, and you can come back. And then sometimes people don't come back. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think
that's okay too.
It's a very important thing that you mentioned, that obviously everyone is at a different point spiritually, and we have to respect that. And we can never assume that everyone knows what we know and vice versa. But we also can expect that we should be open to learning from one another and being open to especially constructive criticism in terms of certain behaviors, because that is, in fact, how we help each other grow. There is that Bible verse that talks about, and forgive me, I don't have it off the top of my head, but it mentions about us helping one another grow and to mature. Yes. And we can't do that if we don't bring up certain things and behaviors to those around us. And yes, sometimes it may be difficult to hear certain things about ourselves that we need to know. But if we keep the mindset that it's for our own good, then we should be good to go. And you also mentioned too, if we need to create a space, if someone's not listening to certain criticism and things like that, for our own good spiritually, especially if that behavior that's happening on the other end is extremely damaging, then we need to do what the best thing is for us spiritually, because we cannot continue to allow someone's toxic behavior. It's not the person, it's the behavior. Yes. We can't allow the behavior to interfere with us spiritually, because therefore then we're not living our true destinies, and that is what God needs us to actually do, is to stay true to ourselves and be able to be living a full, healthy life. And we can't
Yes.
do that when we are entertaining and allowing certain toxic behaviors to continue to happen in our lives.
Yes, that's true. And another thing, you're absolutely right. One more thing that the Holy Spirit, the Lord, will do in many, like I've seen Him do, even in my own life. There'll be times where numbers. We all have the cell numbers on our phone, and you could be texting someone, and all of a sudden he can say, I've heard him vividly say, and make this your last text. After this, don't continue to keep, corresponding with that person. I've heard him tell me that. And for me, I would ask, I used to ask, well, why, Lord? But now I'm at this stage, I don't ask. I just listen, because He knows what's up the road. What's up the road between now and then. Like, He knows what will happen, so I've had to listen to that, those small voices where I could be driving, and He says, I know you want to stop at the store, but just go home. I know you want to grab something to eat, but you just eat at home. Those little things I've learned to take heed, because when you don't, I found it. It's happened to me. I didn't, like, one time He told me just to go on to work, and I didn't one time. This happened 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. I didn't. I stopped at the gas station, and then I proceeded to try to get back on the freeway, and then I was in an accident, a car accident. Wow. So it's just one of those things. It's like he brings it back. He said, go to work, because you had enough gas, but I know you wanted a little bit more, but you had enough to get you to go to work and come back home. So those type of situations, I said, Lord, I don't never want this to happen again, because that could be my life, or it can be somebody else's life.
So that's an
example.
I'm
saying all this,
Yeah, and that, I do apologize for interrupting, but that is an example that you just shared with us, that God stepped in, and it was your inner voice, your intuition, which is God, letting you know at that moment 2 years ago to just go home, and unfortunately you did not, and something tragic happened.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's not on Him. That's another thing. Some people will blame God, but it's not, because, and He'll speak He'll speak audibly. He can speak audibly. He can speak a form like a meekness, a quiet. There's so many, and sometimes He can speak loud where you can hear Him. Like I heard Him. So it's just kind of like, that was one of those things. It's one thing people say, well, I didn't even get a warning. I didn't even hear. No one, you know what I mean? You're just in something. On a car, I know I had a warning.
Yes.
And so it was like my disobedience. So I'm just saying, for me now, I can't afford to be disobedient. Like when He tells me, Marshay, just go ahead and go home. I know you want to go to that, somebody's having a gathering, but don't do that. You know what I mean? And
or to in terms of relationships, like we were talking about earlier, if you have to let someone go that's toxic, then just listen and hope and pray that person, let them go in a loving way, of course, and just pray that they're able to, that we're both able to learn our lessons that we need to, and grow, apart.
Yes. Yes, and that's what I wanted to loop it around and say also too. So like a text message, and it's like, okay, like He was saying to me, it's like, make that be your last, because sometimes the season has ended. And it's not a bad thing. And sometimes, Holy Spirit wants to give us, new kingdom friendships. And sometimes, you outgrow people. That'll happen. And so, He's just saying, okay, no, after this, no, you don't continue onward. This has ended,
Right.
You've ended. It's like an end of the book. It's like end of the book or something. Okay. You say the end, write the end, or end of an essay. You write that conclusion part and you wrap it up. It's finished.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I think that's very important to understand. Now, let me just ask you something. So what do you think this applies to all relationships?
what I've just pretty much stated.
Yes.
Yes, I really feel like it can. Yes,
Okay.
all relationships. I truly do. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And because I know sometimes it can be difficult, especially when it's someone that's a blood relative, right? There's that saying, blood is thicker than water. And, I just had to ask you that because I know a lot of people, especially during this time,
Yes.
are dealing with issues across the board with all kinds of relationships.
Yes. Yes.
And I would say
Yes.
too, I mean, for those who are listening, of course, definitely do your own due diligence and pray on relationships.
Yes.
You don't just want to go, of course, and just cut off people left and right.
Yes.
You just want to, of course,
Yes.
get with God first and see
Yes.
what His intentions are with all of your relationships.
Well, yes, that's most importantly. But also too, even in whether it's a friend, whether you're married, whether it's family. Sometimes you can come to a point too, even in family, where you have to you can still love your cousin, you still love them, but at the same time be praying for them, and God will send that individual back around for you. But it doesn't mean you have to. That doesn't mean you have to still listen to the negativity, be talked down to. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because
100%.
God can give us. He's sovereign. I know He teaches us to love thy neighbor, and of course, you still love your family. But no one has to take abuse in any type of form, And
Right.
so if many people have to, it's okay to still pray. So while you're praying for the individual, with your friend, in your marriage, family, and you'll see God's hand in it. God will turn them around. Yes.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes,
Yes.
I've heard stories, it could be somebody's mother or father, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, because bringing in toxic negativity all the time on the phone. So, and then if you speaking to them, telling them how you feel, telling them how you feel about them, and they're still not heeding, and they're still continuing to keep doing that, and that's not good for you. And so even in that, you still have your mother, I guess, well, it could be anybody, guardian, parents, or just whomever. We can still pray for that individual. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you still have to take a, kind of pull back and. My experience at Arizona State University, all the years from 2003 up until 2007 when I graduated, I was just trusting God. It was just nothing but a faith walk with me being there because I did not have money at all. I applied for financial aid, but I will never forget my tuition. I believe every year the tuition, I believe I needed $12,000 my first year. When I first began, I was only granted $6,000. And do you know that every time it was time for me to register for classes, for whether it was spring, fall, I was always allowed to register, because I remember you had to pay first, then register for your classes, and once you register, then you can, it's like you had to pay your money, then you could register. But I knew that God's hand was in that.
Right.
In that, all those 4 years with me, because I never had enough money. And I remember finding the class that I needed to have, I would, type those numbers in on the kiosk.
Yeah.
Typing them in, and printing them out, printing it out. Okay, these are my classes. Okay, I'm registered. But every year I was just saying, Lord, and I was worried and I would pray and say, Lord, I don't have it. I don't have extra. And then he would just say, but trust me. He would say, just register. And I would register. And then and then I would still be able to get the classes that I needed.
Wow. See, that's a powerful testimony, especially in terms of, the idea that a lot of us can have, right, is the concept of lack and not feeling like we never have enough in certain situations and thinking that we have to fully only rely on ourselves. And that is another major way God shows up and wants to, as a test, to say, hey, if you trust me, then I'll show you that you don't always have to lean on yourself. And actually, in fact, you should never only lean on yourself, that you should know that I'm always here for you, just as long as, of course, that faith is there.
Yes, that's true. And then also for I want to say for anybody whom is wanting to go, who has been already, they have a desire for their college. They already know where they want to go. They've already been admitted, but they're looking at tuition. They're looking at the bill in front of them, and they're saying, "But Lord," and they're just, or maybe they don't have that relationship yet, but they're asking, "How am I going to pay for this? How am I going to pay for it? My schooling is over $70,000. I can't. I want to go to this school. It can be Harvard, Yale, wherever they're going to go. I just want to say, just know to just trust God. Yes. And just still go. Don't look at what you don't have in the natural, because God can do anything.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I don't know who you're going to share this with. I just feel that strongly. Still proceed to go to that school. Absolutely. It doesn't matter. Just still go. God's going to make a way. If He opened up the door for you to receive the admittance, the admittance letter, the congratulations, that was it. So you're in the door. So continue to walk through the door, and God will make a way, and He will do the next step.
Yes, very, very important to understand that. And yes, I'll be sharing this with on my social media platforms, and as well as on the Awakening of Eve YouTube. So this is going to be, whoever decides to press play, they'll be able to hear these messages, and hopefully it will resonate with those who need to hear it.
That's great.
And also, too, I wanted to mention something on the other side. Sometimes it's just not the right timing for certain things to happen. And but still don't get discouraged. So if you're wanting something, I feel like, this is what God put on my heart to say right now, that you're wanting something to happen, whether it be going to a particular school, or maybe you wanted to date a particular person, or maybe you wanted to buy this particular home, but you get denied or rejected. Yes. We've heard this time and time again, that God's rejection is your protection.
Yes,
and maybe it's not your right time, maybe it's not the right person, or maybe there are some things that you still need to get right behavior-wise too, so that you're in the proper alignment to handle that, because God doesn't want us to put ourselves into certain situations, especially if we're not emotionally mature and ready to handle certain things, or have certain people or make sure that we have the right people in our lives for that time period to be ushered in.
Yes, most definitely. But to answer for this is just backing up for this. Yeah, I agree with you. But when an individual, whomever, they do know the door has opened for them. Schooling, they do know the door has anything. I feel if the door has opened, that is the door to continue to walk into. Yes. And I can just only attest for my own testimony, because I was able to still finish And, and I know that was supernatural what he did, because he made a way out of no way.
Because you had no money, and you were able to get the funding, and
yes,
that's
well,
wonderful.
I didn't. I got the FAFSA, but I always was out. I had if it was 12,000. I remember every year it went up. So first year 12,000, second year 13, the third year 14. So it was like I had that half, from the loan, but then you needed that. I needed the other portion.
Right.
That portion I did not have. So that was what God stepped in, and I don't know how He did it, but it was. I knew it was supernatural. However He did it.
Yes.
So that's all I just wanted to say. I agree with what you're saying. Also, too, a part of, if things don't open, then people can, go around and they can, seek God and say, okay, what is it that I need to do? But if the door has opened for them already, see, that was the hardest part. I feel like the door is open. That's a gate. That's a portal. We already know. There's entrance and gates in everything we do in life, but there is a gate for education. So if that door opened for Yale, for Harvard, for Stanford, or any other college that they wanted to go to, that means to go. Do not retreat back. Don't take a step back, and don't look at the finances. Just go.
Just do it. And I think that, but yes, and we also need to just, again, it's imperative because, like you mentioned, the gates and portals is basically in terms of spirituality, things that we don't see, the unseen, that by our choices and actions can open up certain portals. And there's two sides. There's light and dark. So that's why it's important in all of our decisions, again, that we have a strong relationship with God. That way we're going through the proper gate or portal for our lives. And because trust me, by experience, I've gone through several gates that weren't good gates and portals that open up portals and energies and
yes, I know that too. No, it's true.
That can keep you keep people stuck in cycles.
Yes. But there are yes, and with saying that, the gates, and just a gate in healthcare and the political, even employment. That's another gate. You know what I mean? Because when you're trying to look online, apply for jobs, when you look at that and you either receive the offer or not, you see the offer. So it's like, wow, I got through that gate. We don't know what's always on the opposite end. But even on the opposite, what we don't know, when we do go through things, when we don't know what's on the opposite end, then then what we do is we just pray. And all things, you should pray and ask the Lord, even with anything, to say, Lord, let your will be done. Yes. So even in terms of schools, even in terms of relationships, you say, Lord, this is what my desire is, but what is your desire? And then you can, and then also state, well, has always been my long desire to go to, this university like Yale or Harvard. But however, I want to be in your perfect will. So whatever your perfect will, Lord, granted.
Yes.
And that's always best, and even on the wrong, like you were mentioning, somebody going into a wrong gate, just turning down a wrong path. Even in that, God will still be speaking, but God can still speak to that individual. And even in everything they've gone through, sometimes our testings and what He takes us is also to build us.
Yes, and actually, yes, I just also wanted to add, if someone does happen to, because that's why we can't live life, we'll never move if we're constantly living in fear of going down the wrong gate, right? Or going through the wrong gate. We can only just hope that, and trust in God no matter what. But like you mentioned, about the point of praying that God's will be done, God can also turn any situation into something that's going to be beneficial for your higher good.
Yes.
So that's another point, another great point.
Yes, that's so true. That's so
we
true.
Never know.
Yes. I agree. I truly agree. Yes, most definitely.
So awesome, Marshay. Would you happen to have? So that was a wonderful testimony that you shared about God stepping in while going to ASU. And mind you, guys, those who are listening, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you some backstory on how I know Marshay, we actually have known each other for over, gosh, how long has it been now?
Probably 14 years.
Yes, 14 years. We actually met at ASU in a communications class, a writing class.
Yes.
And so that's our backstory. And so, again, I appreciate your time, Marshay, and sharing your testimony for the channel. And I know it's going to help so many people.
Yes.
So would you happen to have any other testimonies that you wanted to go through?
You know what? I like the one. You know what? There are many, but guess what?
I know, right?
We'll be here until next year.
I know, right?
But that was one I wanted to share in this hour because I know that there's within this pandemic, there are a lot that's happening. People have become they've starting their own businesses, or not just starting their own business. People have become very creative. Many people are in transition. I feel that that's not just for just for a small group. I feel like transition right now. Some want to go back into the education field, into school. Some people are planning to move, relocate. So I feel like we're all in some sort of transition. And so that's what came up to share that. I don't know whom would be blessed to hear that, but that's for somebody who will hear that on your channel. But yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
I think that's great. I think a lot of people need to hear that and to understand, because especially if you're one that is not, you're at the beginning of your spiritual journey and you're confused about a lot of things happening, because, again, God can't get us ready for our blessings and our transitioning point without helping us shed layers. And you may be confused as far as why certain things have to go. Yes. Because yes, we are all going through a transition period right now. Some people's transition periods may be a little bit more abrupt because of the layers that need to be peeled back. And that's why it's important too. You brought up a good point, Marshay, that the more willing we are to let go of certain things that we know intuitively that we need to let go of, the easier the transitioning period will be. But the more we hold on tightly to those things that we know must go because we want to keep them, although God is letting us know, hey, you need to let this go, whether it be actual addiction. You get the point, right? And so that's one thing I've learned. This is a personal testimony, because I will admit I used to be super stubborn. I am still stubborn in certain areas of my life. I am still stubborn in certain areas of my life, but God has shown me that, the more I'm able to just let go of my pride and be a little bit more flexible and listen, like you said earlier too, is a key thing. Listen to God and just trust that by doing these certain things, that the transition to the next phase will be a lot easier.
Yes, I agree. Yes, and I just wanted to intercept real quick. I just wanted to share a Psalm 23. I'm just going to if I may, if I can just read Psalm 23. Psalm 23 reads, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, thy comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever."
Thank you, Marshay. And that particular psalm and verse, actually, I've been seeing the number 23 a lot. And so now every time I see it, I correlate it with that verse. And it's a
Wow.
reminder to me
Wow.
that I should not want, that I should just be grateful for what I currently have or what
Mhm.
So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes,
This is great, and I know God is taking you to even more greater avenues and indoors. Yes.
absolutely. And I wanted to ask, so, just to kind of move on to the next point, you are an author. So, yes, so I just wanted to kind of go into that about your
Okay.
book, if you don't mind
All right.
talking about that briefly.
Yes, my book, "Silent but Not Forgotten," was about it was actually had taken 2.5 years to write the process in the book process, but the book is about it's based on a true story. It was about my aunt. She had witnessed in 1983. She had witnessed a murder, and so when it came time for her to testify on whom she had saw, that night, at the night of the murder, she was gunned down on her way to school. At the time, she was going to LACC Community College, and she was just gunned down. She was shot, and with a shotgun at the bus stop. Yes, yes, and where the house was, where she lived, my grandmother, the home. My grandmother could look out her kitchen window and could see the bus stop and could see her daughter lying on the ground.
Wow,
Yes,
Marshay, that is
so
very tragic and very shocking.
Yes, and so that book was God had given me the words to the book. I'll never forget. I left for church one night. I was going to Expression 58. They were having encounter nights, and so encounter nights were like, just nothing but worship. And so I left. It was like from 7 p.m. to 9. And so when I came home, when I arrived home, I sat at my living room table, and I looked up, and I just saw like I just saw like a light, and like a vortex, and like God was just showing me. And so, and then all of a sudden I felt like books just fell in my lap, like literally, like it just fell in my lap. And I remember I had a journal out and a pen, and I just kept writing. I wrote first chapter to the second chapter. I just kept on. So I knew it wasn't me. I knew that it was him, because it was also deliverance for my own family, in my own family, because I had heard about my aunt. Her name is her nickname was Michi, but they call her Demetria. We had, I had heard about her, but no one really spoke about her, and there were a few pictures around the house growing up, but it wasn't a whole lot. So, God had given me the words to write for the book, but also too, he was also showing me there was healing that needed to be done, even in my own family. Just inner healing. Just from the grief and everything. And so I can truly say, with the book, now that it's finished, we launched, because her birthday's on October the 1st. So in memory of her, my family and I, we had a Zoom launch party for my aunt, Demetria. And to make a long story short, everybody was in celebration. Everybody was jovial. They were happy. So I believe that this was the start of our healing.
Wow, that is powerful and very inspirational, for me, and hopefully for a lot of people to hear that, how you were able to step up and take that on, that responsibility to work on doing that for healing in your family. And A lot of us are called to do that, especially there are certain people that are called to do that within families to spearhead certain initiatives. So I think that's wonderful, and I appreciate you and I respect you for sharing that. It's such a private thing.
I understand. I understand. No, and you're welcome. And also, too, there were mothers, too. I begin to see, like, a lot of mothers that have, whether they didn't lose their child by homicide or by gun violence, but they lost their child. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and so my audience was for the mothers, but anyone could relate to the book, whether it was a brother or sister, cousin, or uncle or aunt, whomever who have lost a loved one. At the hands of failed judicial system, the injustice, and you knew that, it was wrong.
Right.
So it was just, I knew that the book would not only be healing for my family, but then for other families out there as well.
Absolutely. And so just to mention again, the title is called Gone But Not Forgotten of the book.
I'm sorry. It's Silence But Not Forgotten.
Got you. And so where can people actually find this book if they're interested in reading it?
Yes, they can find it on Amazon, Amazon.com.
Awesome.
And they could type in silence. It's silenced and silence but not forgotten. And once they type that into the search, the book will come up.
And so
Yes.
it'll be written by you. Marshay
Yes.
is your name. Do you mind if I give your last name?
Yes.
Marshay Crane. I just want to be.
Yes.
I just want to be sure.
Yes, no, it's okay. Right.
But I think that's fabulous in terms of what the power of this book. The power of what it has done for your family and what it will do for other families too, specifically mothers. And any advice, Marshay, that you can give to those who are wanting to write a book?
Yes. The advice that I can give them, because we all have a story. We all have a story within us. And it doesn't matter what type of story it is, whether it's our own story or a story of someone else's. We all are writers. I really feel that we all, have a book lying dormant within us. And what they can do is they can, this is me. They should seek God to say, Lord, what do you want me to write? They should keep a ledger with them, keep a journal. Journaling is good. I believe journaling also can, even in your journaling, you don't know, your journals can turn into a book. I had been journaling for a very long time, even as a kid. And so, and I keep my journals, because I found it that oftentimes I go back to them. And when God has answered a prayer, I go back to that year of the journal, and then I write on the I write on the left side of it, and I'll reread what I was asking God for, and then I'll put, He had here. So I do it I also would like to keep, a remembrance of what God has done for me. Yes, and so I will never forget. But I believe that they should just, pray and ask the Lord, what is it that I can write? But I believe the first step is just to begin to journal. And it doesn't matter if you're, a male or female, and, just speak about your day, just whatever happened, to journal. Yes.
Thank you so much, Marshay, for those words of wisdom. And I'm so glad that we have kept in touch over the years, and I'm looking forward to remaining in touch.